On the battered streets of 1970s Detroit, a kid named Jack Gillis learned to turn harsh reality into sound. Armed with nothing but an old guitar, a red and white rule, and a partner whose true relationship would fuel one of rock's strangest myths. Officially, they were siblings. Privately, they were ex-spouses. Together, Jack and Meg White built the White Stripes, a minimalist duo that sounded impossibly huge, broke every rule about image and honesty, and left fans and critics wondering what was real. But how did a blue-collar upholsterer transform heartbreak, secrecy, and raw talent into a style that revived garage rock, shattered industry convention, and still divides the music world today? This is the story behind the myth, and why Jack White's journey was never as simple as it seemed. John Anthony Gillis was born on July 9, 1975, in Detroit, the youngest of 10 children in a family shaped by the city's working-class grit. His mother, Gorman, worked as a secretary for the archdiocese, and his father, Jack, was a maintenance man. Their home was filled with the sounds of old blues and country records, a steady backdrop to the chaos of a crowded house and the rumble of a city in decline. Jack's first instrument was a drum set, squeezed into a tiny bedroom, where he practiced by playing along to Son House and Led Zeppelin. He attended Cass Technical High, where he studied business, but his real education happened after hours. At age 15, Jack started working in an upholstery shop owned by family friend Brian Muldoon. The job was more than a paycheck. It taught him patience and precision, and the value of making something by hand. The workshop's steady rhythm seeped into his music, and the tools of the trade, including hammers, tacks, and fabric scraps, became part of his creative DNA. Detroit's underground music scene was a second home. Jack haunted clubs like the Gold Dollar, soaking up punk shows and open mic nights. He played drums in local garage bands, sometimes working as a gopher on television commercial sets, to learn the basics of production. These early gigs were raw and sometimes chaotic, but they gave him a taste for the unpredictable energy of live performance. His influences were everywhere: Delta blues legends, country crooners, and the wild abandon of Detroit punk. By his late teens, he was forming bands with friends, recording primitive demos on 4-track machines, and developing a voice that was equal parts high-pitched wail and restless ambition. In the back of the upholstery shop, surrounded by the smell of glue and vinyl, Jack was already dreaming up something new, a sound and a style that would soon find its way from Detroit's hidden corners to the world stage. Jack and Meg White's story began in Detroit, but from the start, they seemed to belong to another world. In September 1996, Jack Gillis married Meg White, a local bartender with a quiet presence that balanced his restless energy. Jack took her last name, a choice that would soon become part of their shared identity. Their home life was modest and private, but in the small attic above their Detroit house, something unusual was taking shape. Meg, who had only recently picked up the drums, sat behind a simple kit while Jack played guitar. The chemistry was immediate, raw, unpolished, and unfiltered. It was in that attic that the idea for the White Stripes was born, a stripped-down duo with no bass, no frills, and no distractions. When they stepped onto Detroit's tiny club stages in 1997, they introduced themselves as siblings. Jack called Meg his big sister, a story that slipped easily into press kits and band bios. The truth that they were husband and wife was quietly hidden in plain sight. For Jack, the myth was not just a shield from personal questions. It was a way to keep the focus on the music, not the people making it. The sibling ruse added a layer of mystery that set them apart from the crowded garage rock scene. Journalists and fans latched onto the story, fueling a sense of intrigue that followed them everywhere. Their image was as carefully constructed as their sound. The White Stripes adopted a strict visual code: red, white, and black, no exceptions. Every album cover, stage outfit, and drum kit followed the palette, inspired by Jack's obsession with simplicity and the Dutch art movement to style. The band's world was governed by rules, from the color scheme to the rule of three colors, 2 people, 1 mission. Meg's steady, minimalist drumming became the perfect counterpoint to Jack's wild guitar and vocals, making her more than a supporting player. She was the creative foil, the silent anchor in the storm. By the end of 1997, the White Stripes had become a fixture in Detroit's underground, their myth growing with every show. The private bond between Jack and Meg had transformed into a public act, built on secrets and strict boundaries. With their image sets and their story carefully guarded, they were ready to step into the studio and capture the sound that was already turning heads in the city's back rooms. The White Stripes' first album landed in 1999, pressed by sympathy for the record industry. Jack and Meg recorded it in their Detroit living room, running battered guitars and Meg's primal drums straight to 8-track tape. The sound was jagged and alive, raw blues riffs and punk shouts packed into 2-minute bursts. Detroit's alt weeklies took notice, calling the duo a throwback to the city's garage roots. But outside Michigan, the record was a rumor traded on message boards and in indie record shops, rarely spotted in the wild. A year later, they returned with De Style. Named for the Dutch art movement, the album doubled down on their strict color code and minimalist rules. Jack's songs stretched further, pulling from Son House and Blind Willie McTell, but also from the raw energy of Iggy Pop. The record's artwork and liner notes became an extension of their myth, a world built from red, white, and black, with every detail carefully controlled. Critics in the UK and college radio DJs in the States started to pay attention. Still, the band kept things close to home, playing cramped shows at the Gold Dollars and Magic Stick, selling merch from the back of Jack's van. Everything changed in 2001 with White Blood Cells. Recorded in Memphis at Easley McCain Studios, the album captured the band at full sprint. Songs like Dead Leaves and The Dirty Ground and Hotel Yorba raced across the airwaves, their rawness sharpened by Jack's knack for melody. The press frenzy took off. NME declared them the future of rock, while US outlets scrambled to decode the sibling myth. Suddenly, the duo's secret was out. Demand for interviews and shows exploded, and the White Stripes' story spread far beyond Detroit's city limits. One of the most striking moments came with the video for Fell in Love with a Girl. French director Michel Gondry used thousands of Lego bricks to animate Jack and Meg as blocky, pixelated figures. The video's DIY spirit matched the band's ethos perfectly. MTV and TRL put it on heavy rotation, and the band's image, already iconic, became instantly recognizable to millions. Within months, the White Stripes went from cult favorites to international phenomenon. Their sound, once confined to basement clubs, now echoed in stadiums and late-night television studios. The myth that once protected them now fueled their legend, and the world wanted more. In April 2002, the White Stripes landed in London, chasing a sound that lived somewhere between memory and invention. Toe Rag Studios, tucked away in Hackney, was a shrine to analog recording, with an 8-track Studer tape machine, battered tube gear, and not a single computer in sight. Engineer Liam Watson kept the hours strange, and the rules strict. Nothing recorded after 1963. Every take live, every mistake left on the tape. Jack and Meg arrived with a suitcase of songs and a hunger for something raw. Jack ran his guitar through 2 vintage amps, chasing a tone that could fill a stadium without ever leaving the room. Meg's drums echoed off the studio tile floors, her steady pulse anchoring the chaos. In less than 2 weeks, they tracked 18 songs, including the now inescapable 7 Nation Army. Jack built that riff with a pitch-shifting pedal, bending his guitar to sound like a bass, then stacking it with Meg's blunt force drumming. The result was a marching beat that would soon thunder through soccer stadiums and city streets around the world. The sessions were a test. There was no safety net and no digital fixes. If a song did not fit on 8 tracks, Jack would rewrite it on the spot. Watson recalled the intensity, long nights, quick decisions, and a sense that the tape itself was running the show. The studio's limitations forced creativity. Vocals were sometimes run through a tiny guitar amp, drenched in spring reverb, then captured on a Neumann microphone that had seen decades of sessions before them. The sound was explosive, immediate, and unmistakably human. When Elephant arrived in 2003, the band's analog gamble paid off. Critics called it a masterpiece, and the single 7 Nation Army turned into a global anthem. The White Stripes performed on national television, stepping into the glare of late-night shows and award stages. Their image, red, white, and black, was now everywhere, but the music stayed defiantly handmade. Jack, restless as ever, began reaching for new instruments: piano, marimba, even a marxophone. 2005's Get Behind Me, Satan pivoted from guitar heroics to piano-driven experimentation, while 2007's Icky Thump pulled in Mexican folk and Scottish bagpipes, expanding the band's palette without losing its edge. Each album was a new experiment, but the analog heart never faded. By now, Jack and Meg were seasoned performers, carrying the lessons of toe rag into every session, every stage, every risk. The band had reached a creative peak, but Jack's curiosity was already pulling him toward new collaborations and side projects, signaling that the story was far from over. Jack White never stayed in one lane for long. Even as the White Stripes reached new heights, he kept searching for fresh ways to push himself as a musician. Before the world tours and magazine covers, he had already dipped into Detroit's cowpunk scene with Goober and the Peas, and later the Upholsterers. But it was after the Stripes' breakthrough that his appetite for collaboration truly took over. In 2005, Jack teamed up with Brendan Benson, a fellow Detroiter known for sharp pop hooks. They recruited Patrick Keeler and Jack Lawrence from the Greenhorns, and called themselves the Raconteurs. Their debut album, Broken Boy Soldiers, was released in 2006 and went gold. Jack wasn't just the front man this time. He played rhythm guitar, traded vocals with Benson, and let the songs unfold in a looser, more democratic style. The Raconteurs' sound was bigger, drawing on classic rock and British invasion influences, and it gave Jack room to experiment with harmonies and arrangements that did not fit the Stripes' strict formula. In 2009, he stepped behind the drum kit for The Dead Weather, a band built around Alison Mosshart's snarling vocals and Dean Fertitta's fuzzed-out guitar. Here, Jack played drums and sang backup, switching to guitar only for a few songs. The Dead Weather's music was dark, swampy, and unpredictable, full of distorted riffs and eerie, bluesy grooves. Their debut, Whorehound, was released that summer, followed quickly by Sea of Cowards. Jack relished the chance to drive the band from the back of the stage, channeling the lessons he had learned from his earliest days as a drummer. These side projects were not just distractions. Each one let Jack test new identities, swap instruments, and learn how to lead without always being in the spotlight. The skills he picked up, collaborating, producing, and letting go of total control, would soon shape his next chapter as a label boss and solo artist. In 2009, Jack White opened the doors to Third Man Records in Nashville, turning a lifelong obsession with analog sound into a physical destination. The building was not just a label office. It was a working studio, a vinyl pressing plant, and a storefront all rolled into one. Inside, racks of colored vinyl lined the walls, and a 1950s Scully lathe stood ready to cut live performances straight to acetate. Jack and his team, including Ben Blackwell and Ben Swank, set out to make records the old way, inviting artists to record direct-to-disc sessions that captured every imperfection and spark of energy. These live-to-acetate performances became a signature, with guests like Neil Young and Wanda Jackson leaving with a one-of-a-kind record in hand. Third Man's Vault subscription launched the same year, offering fans exclusive releases, rare live recordings, and limited edition vinyl pressed on site. The model was simple: sign up, receive a package of new music and collectibles every quarter. For collectors and diehards, the Vault became a lifeline, each shipment a reminder that music could still be tactile, mysterious, and rare. Jack's commitment to vinyl was not nostalgia. It was a statement of faith in the power of physical media. He poured the same energy into producing for other artists, most famously Loretta Lynn and her album Van Leer Rose, recorded and released in 2004. That project, tracked in Detroit with a stripped-back band, earned a Grammy for Best Country Collaboration and revived Lynn's career for a new generation. By building Third Man from the ground up, Jack created a playground for analog obsessives and a nerve center for the vinyl revival. Every detail, from the in-house pressing plant to the custom lathe cuts, reflected his belief that music should be experienced as an object, not just a stream. With Third Man, He blurred the line between artist, producer, and craftsman, shaping a new ecosystem where records are made to last. Jack White's solo career began with a burst of restless invention. In 2012, he released his debut album, Blunderbuss, recorded in Nashville with a rotating cast of musicians. The songs pulled from country, gospel, and hard-edged rock, but the fingerprints were unmistakably his: raw vocals, jagged guitar, and lyrics that twisted heartbreak into something sharp. Blunderbuss debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200, proving that his appeal reached far beyond the bands that made his name. 2 years later, White doubled down on experimentation with Lazaretto. This was not just another record, it was a technical playground. The Ultra LP version of Lazaretto pushed the boundaries of vinyl engineering with hidden tracks beneath the label, dual groove intros, locked grooves at the end, and even a hand-etched hologram that spun above the disc when held under light. The album set a SoundScan-era record for first-week vinyl sales, moving over 40,000 copies in its opening week. Industry insiders called it a stunt, but for White, it was a statement of intent, a challenge to the idea that music should be disposable or digital only. By 2018, with Boarding House Reach, White's experiments grew stranger and bolder. He blended hip-hop beats, spoken word, and fuzzed-out electronics, refusing to settle into any one style. Each solo release expanded his toolkit, but the spirit of his earliest days, hands-on, unpredictable, and fiercely analog, remained at the core. Jack White's fingerprints are all over the sound of 21st century rock. Bands like the Black Keys, the Kills, and Arctic Monkeys drew direct inspiration from the White Stripes' stripped-down attack and analog grit. Garage revivalists and indie upstarts alike borrowed the color-coded discipline and the raw, two-person setup, chasing that same sense of urgency. Even in pop and hip-hop, the stomp of Seven Nation Army echoes in stadiums and in samples, its riff now a global chant. But influence comes with scrutiny. Some musicologists and critics have raised questions about the White Stripes' relationship to the black blues tradition. Jack's devotion to Delta blues and country roots is clear in his catalog, yet scholars have debated whether the band gave full credit to the originators whose sounds they revived. These critiques have not erased the respect he has earned for championing lost genres and for producing records for legends like Loretta Lynn. Recognition from the establishment has followed. The White Stripes have earned multiple Grammy Awards and a reputation as torchbearers for analog authenticity. While the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has not yet called, their legacy is already cemented in the music that followed and in the debates their work continues to spark. Vinyl sales just hit a 30-year high, and do-it-yourself bands fill global charts. Proof that Jack White's analog rebellion still pulses through modern music. His insistence on raw imperfection challenges a digital world obsessed with polish. As new artists build on the myths he sparked, one truth endures. Authenticity, not automation, defines what endures. What will tomorrow's legends choose to keep real? Thanks for watching. Share your thoughts below.